there are 33 million businesses in the US, and 78% of them are sitting in hidden profit. That translates into out of survival mode into thrive mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, my guest is Karena Bell from ProfitLinz. Karena, thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your company.
Thank you for having me, Carl. I'm excited to be here this morning. A little bit about me. Quick summary. I spent about 30 years working in Fortune 500 and large enterprise organizations, focused on operational optimization, identifying the technology to support that, and then also financial optimization internally for the organizations that I worked for. And after 30 years, needed a break, went and owned and operated a couple different businesses that were successful, but I lost that spark. I did something very different with those businesses. And what I realized was I didn't want to walk away from it entirely. I wanted to change things up a little bit in how we went about those same types of processes, but bring it to more underserved markets, like the fast-growing small business and mid-market enterprises. And fast forward to ProfitLinz. I started ProfitLinz a little over 4 years ago, and we've evolved and grown very quickly in that short amount of time. And really excited to work with other mid-market leaders that are really anxious and excited to move their business out of survival mode into thrive, scale, and grow mode.
Awesome. Great. So, jumping into some of the questions here, I know that you help companies recover 10 to 30% of their profits, and that in a pretty fast turnaround. What are the most common profit leaks you see right away when you guys start your investigation?
That's a great question. When we have a product called Profit 360, and that is a forensic financial analysis of a business's P&L. We consistently uncover profit leaks in four major areas that I'd like to share. The first one is misaligned pricing strategies. So a lot of times businesses are often undercharging for their products or services, and they should be charging based on value, or they fail to adjust for rising costs. Oftentimes prices are static when they should actually be variable. The second is inefficient cost structures, especially in procurement and supply chain, where mid-market companies lack visibility into vendor overcharging or redundant subscriptions. The third is operational waste. It's anything that is operational. A lot of times we see excess in labor costs, poor workforce allocation, bloated technology, IT tech stacks with overlapping tools, and manual tasks that should be automated. And fourth is revenue leakage. Those are things like uncollected receivables or discounted tracking without any ROI associated with it, or even sales teams that are leaving money on the table for not enforcing the contracts that they actually signed in the terms. One of our clients discovered 22% of their operational spend was on unused software licenses,
Oof.
as one example of how forensic analysis can expose some hidden drains in a
I
business.
mean, what's crazy is that I'm here listening to it. I'm thinking about my own business, and I'm like, I don't do this, I don't do that. But I am sure that many listeners will have the same perception. But we would probably find out that we're wrong. That I'm sure I have double subscription somewhere for something. So, no, it makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. So, I mean, that being said, what does your first 30 to 60 days look like when you walk into a business? And so, what are you digging into first?
hmm well, what we like to do is a 30 to 90 day
Gotcha.
sprint. And what we're doing is it's a three phase process. We focus on first the profit leak identification, and then we dive into, and I'll explain more. We dive into the processes that are leading to the profit leaks, And then we identify those quick wins. What can we implement inside of 30, 60, 90 days that is increasing the cash flow right away, along with building a 12-month roadmap for some of the larger scale projects that are going to have very big impacts on the bottom line. So going back to profit leak detection, we use AI-driven anomaly, anomaly detections to flag irregularities in cost of goods sold, payroll, discretionary spend. One client we had a 12% variance in just their freight costs tied to unoptimized shipping contract. So there's a lot in the details. You know, that old saying, the devil's in the details. There's so much profit drainage in a business that oftentimes reports they get are very high level or summary, and the reports we work with are line item levels of detail. So it allows us to identify the who, what, where, and why something is actually a loss leader for a business. The second is identifying the processes. That's where we trace the financial data back to the departments and the operations that are going on in the day-to-day operations of the business. We had an example with a manufacturer we worked with. They found that their high-performing division was actually subsidizing inefficiencies in the division with inflated transfer pricing. So on the reports, the summary reports, it looked like they were very high performing, but when we dove into the details, we saw the variant where it was the gap of what the true profit of the business or that department actually was, and we were able to adjust the process. So when the leadership was looking at the numbers, they were looking at the true numbers without any bloat or fluff. And then
And I was going to say that's impressive. I mean, at that level of detail, but go ahead. I know you had the last point.
Oh, and then just the quick wins and the roadmap is, you know, we were able to run our analysis and get the results back inside of a week. And so we're able to start working on resolution and solution by week 2.
Nice.
And that we're looking at what can we accomplish as quickly as possible. And then we're also looking at what is going to take a little bit longer than 90 days. And especially for businesses that are not structured to exit. And this is a delineation between business owners that want to exit and those that aren't structured to exit. I want to make a key point here because it's so important for every business owner, regardless of where you are in your business, in the longevity of your business. Every business owner should have an exit plan strategy, and they should be structured to exit at any given point. The reason I emphasize that is we don't know the reasons that someone may be forced to exit a business. Unfortunate timely death of a business owner. Without that plan in place, that leaves a heavy burden on the family who oftentimes cannot take the business to market to sell it. Transition of the business. An exit of a business can also mean that someone acquires your business and you stay with the business. So you might be exiting out of your role, but you're staying within the business. And I think exit planning is a whole nother discussion, Carl, but that's part of it, is that think of it as structuring your business that you could ebb and flow in and out of your business, or whether you wanted to acquire other businesses or they acquire you. Are you properly structured to do that if you weren't the person that was leading that business?
Understood. And is this something that you guys offer as well, the exit plan strategies?
We do, because it is within the infrastructure of the business, and the staff has to be structured for transition as well. It's not just the owner, because when someone is looking to acquire a business, they're looking at how will it be transitioned to the new owners in the new leadership. If the owner of the company is the only rainmaker in that company, when the owner leaves, that sales pipeline is going to leave with them. That's a very big risk for a potential buyer to take on. Now, if there's a sales team and they're trained, the owner trained them, they have sales processes, documentation, training. Now that looks very appealing for someone to buy it because when the owner steps back, that sales team will continue on and the sales pipeline will carry through the new ownership and the new leader. That's one example. There's many examples I could go into, but that's key because so many business owners are actually fulfilling that rainmaker role, and it makes it very challenging to later sell that business.
Of course, it makes sense. And I mean, at the beginning of the of your answer, you mentioned AI, how you leverage AI at the beginning of the
Mhm.
analysis. What did you guys do before AI, and when did you actually start using AI?
Oh gosh, we've been using AI because my technology background, we were using AI before AI was cool. Uh, but it has become I would say we were using AI back when I worked in corporate about 10 years ago. I was actually tasked with standing up a and business intelligence department for a large healthcare organization,
Hmm.
and we were implementing AI back then. Now AI is our force multiplier. Most mid-market businesses use basic
Hmm.
analytics. We deploy predictive and prescriptive models that act like a financial MRI of a business that many business leaders don't see and don't have access to. Uh, I can share a few examples. For instance, we built a dynamic pricing engine for a logistics client that adjusted their rates in real time
Mm,
based on fuel costs and demand, boosting their margins by
it's awesome.
18%. Another one, and this is my favorite. We audit AP and AR
Hmm.
workflows to spot late payments or duplicate invoices. One professional services firm recovered
Wow.
600,000 in overpayments in 45
Wow.
days. And it's just with the data that we're able to make such a big impact in a short amount of time that leaders are looking at a lot of data. The question is, am I looking at the right data? And what
Hmm.
is this data telling me? And is it giving me the answers that I'm looking for? For anyone that is getting a report and they're making decisions based on the data in
Hmm.
that report, I challenge you to go back to the source of the data of that report and identify, am I getting the information at the level of detail I need to make informed decisions?
I mean, listen, that's awesome. And I mean, that being said, though, where do you see AI being underused in finance and operations today, especially in that mid market that you guys are in?
Oh yeah, there's two glaring gaps in for finance and operations. The first one is cash flow forecasting. Most mid-market CFOs rely on spreadsheets where AI can predict shortfalls 60 to 90 days in advance by analyzing seasonality, customer payment trends, and even macroeconomic signals. My favorite place to start is automating PO to invoice reconciliations. That typically can take businesses days, sometimes weeks to reconcile. It can be reduced down to
Wow.
minutes. And again, cash flow is the lifeblood of every business. And to not have dynamic information that you can point to at any given time of the day and say, okay, this is where we are, 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 that's a huge risk for any business and business leader.
And
The second, oh, go
so
ahead.
regarding cash flow, a small tangent here. So where do people even start? You know, because obviously, I think a lot of people understand what cash flow is, but they don't understand the importance of
Mm-hmm.
cash flow.
Yes, yes. Oh, so staying on the cash flow vein, accounts payable. Everything that you pay out of your business, look at with a high level of scrutiny and ask yourself, is this helping us to make money, to make more sales, to support our
Hmm.
clients? in the manner that they expect or that exceeds their expectations. Be very critical on all AP spend because so much of it is lost, especially for your listeners. If you have anything that is on auto renew, your contracts are on auto renew, turn it
Hmm.
off and set up reminders to review your contract 60 days before they're due. You want 60 days in the event that you want to renegotiate your contract. You're going to do it in the first 30 days of that 60-day
Hmm.
time frame because most contract renewals have to be adjusted at that 30-day before they expire mark. Most people look at their contracts starting 30 days before they expire. You're already inside that window that you should have made a decision within. That's how contracts are written. So if you're on auto renew, turn that off and make sure you're setting enough time to analyze that contract and renegotiate it if needed. We can help with that as well. That's something that we provide. In AR, the accounts
Hmm.
receivable is just as important. The money coming in, uh, how how many days in arrears are your receivables? Do you have clients that only pay 60, 90, 120 days or more? You are essentially financing their
Hmm.
business because they haven't paid you in that 15 or 30-day term. And there's a number of ways that you can incentivize them or set up contracts for even early payment. So you're encouraging them to pay early versus late. You always want to keep an eye on your accounts receivable. So many times I have conversations with leaders that say, "Oh, but these are our best clients." And we'll find out that they're the worst at paying, or they could be the biggest loss leaders because they haven't drilled down to that line item level of detail.
I mean, listen, that's amazing insight. So account payables, account receivables, any businesses should keep a close eye on these, and also making sure that, like, to your point, the contracts do not put it on auto pay, and the importance of renewing.
Another one, sorry, Carl, there's another one I
Yeah,
do want to
please.
share with your audience is your vendor risk intelligence. So many companies are reliant on vendors, heavily reliant on vendors. Is AI can monitor the financial health of your suppliers
Mm,
and the geopolitical risks. We're seeing that now with the geopolitical risks that suppliers outside U.S. borders are facing, and suppliers inside, in businesses inside the borders. Uh, Another risk is a vendor that could be in a hurricane
hmm.
zone. Do you only have one vendor and they're in the southeast of the United States? That's a risk. One of our clients avoided a $2 million disruption in their business by changing suppliers and adding another supplier 4 months before their primary supplier declared bankruptcy.
Wow.
Think about that, where a lot of times leaders aren't thinking about the supplier not being there. There are elements and variables that cause a supplier to go under. That's why I always recommend try to never have just one
Hmm.
supplier, have multiple suppliers. And if you get really sophisticated, depending on your business, you might be ordering from Mexico on Tuesday, in Brazil on Thursday, and Argentina on Friday because you are monitoring the markets, you're monitoring
Hmm.
prices, shipping, and. Um,
That's
and then for
No, I mean, listen, that's great advice. And I always thought of diversification, but you just took it to another level here. Even thinking about shipping from different countries. Yes, I mean, for e-commerce customers, this is a big headache. We saw it with the tariffs recently from China.
mhm.
So yes, that just highlights the importance of the diversification of the suppliers even more.
And Brazil is a good example. I read this morning, guys, currently tariffs into the U.S. for Brazil are 10%. I read this morning there's talks of increasing it to 50% for Brazil, Argentina,
Yep.
and Venezuela. So again, if you're not monitoring that, that's something that's big. People are paying attention
Yeah.
to that. Uh, but that's one extreme example. And then additionally, for vendor compliance, uh, businesses that work in uh, CPG or highly regulated industries, they're required to track the compliance of their vendors. And with AI, you can automatically track the compliance of your vendors and your vendors'
Mhm.
vendors. And especially if you're working overseas and you're cross border with your products or ingredients or any element of your business, uh, OFAC is the International
Mhm.
Compliance Board that monitors the compliance of you, your business, and all of your suppliers that feed into your business. And if your vendors fall out of compliance, the fines are significant. So again, that's another thing that right now a lot of people are manually managing and tracking that, and it is a monumental effort when you think about what's involved with that. Whereas AI can track it, report on it, and notify you who's out of compliance, where they're out of compliance, and this is what they need to do to get back into compliance. So you can partner with your suppliers uh, more deeply as well to protect your company and to protect theirs.
And I mean, listen, I think this is amazing advice. So playing devil's advocate a little bit, let's say somebody
Mm-hmm.
listening to this could be thinking, but if I go and give business to a different supplier, this might impact my relationship with my current one. So what would you tell them?
Mm. Yes. Well, and business is relationship based. That anyone that says it isn't, I don't want to work with. Uh, However, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, it is a business relationship. And from a business standpoint, uh, that is an area that you have to handle delicately. I actually help with a lot of those conversations as well. Sometimes I'm even brought in to have difficult
Mm,
conversations on behalf of leaders and owners as well. And it has to be managed with a significant level of tact. And that's where data comes in to support the ask, where it is the ask is defensible with the data.
makes sense. I mean, listen, I know I took us on a tangent here, but to bring it back to our earlier conversation. So if I remember correctly, we were just discussing, the impact of AI, which I think you definitely explained really well, how you use AI in profit lines and with your customers. So that being said, then I want to hear some examples now. Like, what's a recent client transformation you're proud of, and one that really surprised you with the results?
Oh yes, we had a, a retail customer. They were doing about 50 million in annual recurring revenue, and they thought they were lean. Uh, when until we ran our analysis and revealed that their inventory carrying costs were 2 times industry benchmarks due to overstocking slow-moving products. With AI, what we did is we were able to identify 37 SKUs that contributed to only 4% of the revenue, but were 19% of their holding and storage costs. So, with dynamic replenishment algorithms, we were able to reduce stockouts while cutting inventory spend by 28%. So, when they were restocking, it was a more efficient restocking versus restocking every quarter. It might be something that reduced to by weeks instead of months. And the kicker, and this was an example of their best
Mhm.
customer, who was a
Mhm.
wholesaler, was actually unprofitable for them when they factored in the payment terms and the support cost. Restructuring that relationship added $1.2 million to their
Wow.
bottom line. We thought we were going to uh, we knew going in we were going to have some success with their holding costs in their SKUs. We didn't expect
The amount.
the one customer to be able to regain 1.2 million. That's significant no matter
Oh
what
yeah,
size business you are.
definitely.
And they assumed it was a technology problem, and it was actually the details of their financial data that held the keys. And the data is where it gets really exciting for me. When most people they're saying, we turn the boring analytics from a information on a page into hard cash flow increases back into the business. That's when I get really excited because you see how it doesn't just impact the leader, it impacts everyone in the
Hmm.
organization, and that's where it gets to be a lot of
I
fun.
mean, listen. So this is mind blowing. But so for a CEO listening, okay, who thinks they're already running lean, what's one question they should ask their CFO to double check on?
Mm, that's a great question. What's our cost to produce $1 of gross profit by product line, and how has it trended over the last 8 quarters? Most most people will find 2 to 3 product lines are masking inefficiencies.
Hmm. Let's repeat that for me again.
What is our cost to produce $1 of gross profit by product
Okay,
line, and how has it trended over the last 8 quarters?
gotcha. Okay, all right. So to your point here is taking a deeper dive into the data, and now
Yes,
and
go
yeah,
ahead.
and so now like now what's the biggest red flag answer from that CEO? Like if what should trigger them to say, you know what, in that case we are in big trouble, or you know what, it's not great, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, and if they're finding inefficiencies there, then they definitely want to, or
Mm-hmm.
discrepancies, I should say, they definitely want to dig into the data. Uh, I would ask any report that goes to a CEO or a CFO that is financially related to request it go to line item level of detail. Now, it might be something that somebody may need some help learning how to do and how to get that information. But with AI, and reverting back to AI, AI is not the end all be
Mm-hmm.
all. But I do want to just clarify that we're talking about AI and how we're utilizing it in finances right now. Uh, I always caution people, don't try to boil the ocean with AI. Start with something small, a proof of concept, a 4 to 6 week proof of concept, usually very
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive, low cost. See the benefit, see the process, and then identify, okay, now where's another area in the business we can go? And take one process. Don't take a whole department, take one process at a time and walk through that. And you'll start to see, and then the ideas start to flow and go, oh, wait a minute, what about here? What about
Mm-hmm.
here? What about this? What about that? And once people see it and experience it for the first time or the second time, they'll realize that, AI isn't just for Fortune 500 companies, and it doesn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, if you look at the front page of any AI publication, you'll see many projects that are hundreds of millions of dollars into AI
Mm-hmm.
implementation, and a year and a half later, nothing has been implemented, but hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on it because the scope was so big that it was unobtainable. And so, whatever size your business is, always start with something that is a proof of concept, a process, one process at a time, and then you can start building and scaling
Makes
from there.
sense. Learning with, the smaller ventures and then expanding. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I mean that brings
Yes.
me to my next question, which is, you've you've addressed many pluses that you guys will do for companies, but one a big one was, a guaranteed ROI and many of your projects. So how do you structure that, and what makes you so confident offering it?
Mm. Oh, thank you for asking. Our typical engagements are we have a small monthly retainer to cover our
Hmm.
operational cost, and then we tie our success fees to verified cash flow or savings within the company. And typically it's a percentage of 12 to 24 months of whatever we've recovered for the business. Our confidence comes from the Profit 360
Hmm.
methodology. We pressure test every recommendation against over 5 years of industry data before implementing it. Uh, so we're very confident in that. And oftentimes, our guarantee on Profit 360 is at a minimum, we will provide 5 times your investment or your money back. And oftentimes it's 8 or 10 times that. My lawyers just won't let me say that yet.
I love it.
So essentially, uh, essentially, if we don't find advantage for you, you don't pay, and that's our skin in the
Yep.
game. I've worked in very large companies where we only address the big
Hmm.
boulders that were the biggest benefit, and yet we still left so much on the table. And now, working in the mid market in some large enterprise, we're going after all of the cash flow that makes sense. Not necessarily every
Hmm.
piece of it, but all of it that makes sense. And we're actually going wide and deep, where a lot of firms will go narrow and deep. So that's where I have my most fun. And as you can tell, I can nerd out on these
Oh yeah,
conversations
oh yeah.
pretty
The
quickly.
passion is palpable. I mean,
Yes.
so that being said, then before we close this out, what is your ideal target customer? So who listening to this should be like, you know what, this is who I need to reach out to for my business.
Yes, thank you for asking. That is a hard charging, fast growing small business, or our primary clients are mid market
Hmm.
businesses. The person I'm typically talking with, or the people, are the owners, founders, CEOs, CFOs, and COOs of businesses that they're looking for options on how to scale and grow their business without going externally for external
Hmm.
funding, and they're actively seeking. They're doing well, and they're sitting there questioning, could we be doing better? And what I always like to advise is, especially before a growth stage, make sure you have plugged all the leaks in your business before you attempt to go to your next milestone growth stage. Because the goal is, as your revenue increases, you want the profit to increase. Many times, businesses are moving like this, or God forbid, like that, where the profit is going down or flat. The goal is, as the revenue increases, the profit is following closely along.
Spot on. So regardless of the industry, mid-market is what you typically, who you typically work with, but also now branching towards smaller businesses, but also the big guys as well.
We do a bit of work that's typically much more focused on the large enterprises, yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, listen, Karina, it was a true pleasure having you. Thank you for all the insights. And listen, I'm looking forward to a potential future episode with you because I feel like we have a lot more to learn from you. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much, Carl. It was my pleasure.